Hello, welcome back to the channel, and honestly, I don't even know where to start with this one because what just happened at the world's biggest charity auction is something nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming. This was supposed to be Messi's moment. This was supposed to be the auction where a signed jersey from the greatest footballer of all time went for a jaw-dropping price, and every single headline in the sports world talked about it for weeks. That was the plan. That was what everyone expected walking into this. Instead, football fans, sports collectors, and even people who don't care about K-pop at all are sitting there completely stunned because a shirt worn by BTS member Jimin just quietly, and then not so quietly, climbed past Lionel Messi's signed Argentina jersey in bidding, and it did not stop there. It kept climbing. And by the time you finish watching this video, you are going to understand exactly how a K-pop idol's stage outfit ended up outbidding one of the most legendary athletes on planet Earth, and why this moment says something much bigger about where global fandom is heading in 2026. So let's set the scene properly, because context matters here, and I want you to feel the full weight of what's going on. On July 19th at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, the FIFA World Cup final happened between Spain and Argentina, and alongside that final, history was made in a completely different way. For the very first time ever, FIFA hosted a full-scale halftime show at a World Cup final, the kind of massive production usually reserved for the Super Bowl. This wasn't a small gesture either. Global Citizen produced the whole thing, and the lineup was absolutely stacked. Madonna was there. Coldplay was there. Justin Bieber was there. Shakira, who had already performed the official tournament anthem Die Die, came back out for the halftime stage too. And then there was BTS, performing their song Dynamite in front of a stadium packed with tens of thousands of people and a global broadcast audience in the tens of millions. This was the moment. This was the stage where all 7 members stood in front of the entire footballing world and represented K-pop on a platform that had never existed before for any music act, let alone a group from Korea. Now here's where the story really starts, because after the halftime show wrapped and the final whistle blew on the match itself, the auction house Christie's stepped in with something special. In partnership with Global Citizen, they launched a charity sale called One Goal, running from July 22nd all the way through July 29th, with every single dollar raised going toward the FIFA Global Citizen Education Fund. This wasn't some random collectibles sale either. This was Christie's, one of the most prestigious auction houses on the planet, the same house that sells fine art and historic memorabilia to the wealthiest collectors in the world. And what they put up for bidding was incredible. The actual match ball used in the World Cup final itself, donated personally by FIFA President Gianni Infantino. Signed national team jerseys. A pair of sneakers worn by Justin Bieber. Handwritten lyrics from Chris Martin. Crystal-covered performance gloves from Madonna. The outfit Shakira wore in her Die Die music video. And, of course, a signed Argentina jersey from Lionel Messi himself, the reigning World Cup winner, the face of football, a man whose signature alone can make grown adults empty their bank accounts. But then there was something else in that auction too. All 7 members of BTS donated one item each, straight from their halftime show performance. RM gave his boots. Jeon gave his waist belt. SUGA gave his stage trousers. J-Hope gave his performance gloves. V gave the scarf he wore tucked into his belt. Jungkook gave the jacket he performed in. And Jimin gave the shirt off his back. Literally, a custom white and red jersey with the number 7 on it, designed specifically for that halftime stage by a UK-based fashion house called A0 Studio. Every single one of these 7 items started at the exact same modest opening bid of just $100. On paper, this looked like a nice little sentimental add-on to a much bigger auction dominated by football royalty and global pop icons. Nobody expected these 7 pieces of K-pop stage were to become the actual story of the entire event. And yet here we are, because within less than 24 hours of the auction opening, something completely unexpected started happening. Jimin's shirt, which Christie's had pre-estimated to sell for somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000, blew straight past that number and kept going. Bidders kept piling on, refreshing, rebidding, pushing the number higher every time someone thought they had it locked in. Within a single day, it had already crossed $15,000, more than 3 times its highest estimate, and it was still gathering steam. Meanwhile, Messi's signed jersey, which had been expected to be one of the crown jewels of the whole sale, was sitting there getting steady bids too, but nowhere near the chaos surrounding Jimin's shirt. And that's when people really started paying attention, because a K-pop idol's stage costume outbidding a signed jersey from arguably the greatest footballer who has ever lived is not something that happens by accident. That's not a fluke. That's a message. And if you actually go and pull up the Christie's listing pages yourself, you can watch this play out lot by lot. Jimin's shirt sits under lot 22, officially titled A Shirt Worn by Jimin of BTS during the FIFA World Cup 2026 Tops Final, credited to HYBE Studio 2026, with that same $3,000 to $5,000 estimate printed right there on the page. At one point during the climb, that listing showed 39 separate bids, pushing the price to $8,000, already more than 1.5 times its top estimate and still nowhere near its ceiling. Meanwhile, just a few lots away, Lot 7 is Messi's listing, a Lionel Messi signed Argentina FIFA World Cup 2026 home jersey made by Adidas, carrying a much lower estimate of $1,000 to $3,000. At that same moment in the auction, Messi's jersey had 34 bids and sat at $5,500. Side by side, in real time, on the same auction house's own website, a shirt from a K-pop stage performance was outpacing a signed jersey from the World Cup winning captain, both in dollar value and in raw bidding activity. And from there, both listings just kept climbing even higher as the week went on. By the time the auction reached its final days, the numbers had become almost unbelievable. Jimin's jersey climbed all the way to $17,000 after 50 separate bids, tying for the highest bid count of any single item in the entire sale. Messi's signed jersey, for comparison, sat at $16,000 with 49 bids. Just $1,000 separated a global football icon from a K-pop idol's halftime show shirt, and, depending on the exact moment you checked the listing, that gap kept shrinking, disappearing, and reversing entirely. And Jimin wasn't even alone in this. The scarf, the one worn tucked beneath his belt during the performance, designed by Courtney MC and featuring Red Devil and BTS motifs, ended up right there with him, climbing to $18,000 after 51 bids, officially becoming the single highest bid BTS item in the entire auction and surpassing Messi's jersey outright. 2 BTS members, wearing costume pieces from one halftime performance, had both individually outbid the World Cup winning captain of Argentina. Let that sink in for a second, because this is the kind of thing that sports journalists were not remotely prepared to write headlines about. And this is where I want you to understand something important, because this entire moment only makes sense when you look at BTS as a full unit and not just individual members chasing numbers. This wasn't about one idol having a bigger fan base than another. This was 7 members, 7 separate items, all rising together, all pulling attention as a collective force the same way they've always operated as a group since debut. RM's boots climbed to over $3,000. Jin's belt reached close to $5,000. SUGA's trousers pushed past $9,000. J-Hope's gloves shot all the way up to $14,000, an incredible number on its own that would have been the headline of any other auction. Jungkook's jacket landed at $10,000. Every single piece of BTS stage were outperformed its estimate by multiples, not by a little bit, by 3, 4, sometimes 5 times the original projected value. This was not one fan sniping one item for bragging rights. This was an entire global fan base mobilizing across 7 separate auction listings at the exact same time, all while genuinely supporting a children's education charity, which honestly makes the whole thing even more powerful. Because unlike a normal bidding war over merchandise, every single dollar of that overbidding is going straight into funding education programs for kids around the world. Now let's actually talk about Jimin's shirt specifically, because there is a reason this particular item became the centerpiece of the entire story, more than any other single piece from the halftime show. This jersey wasn't some recycled tour merchandise or a random item pulled from a closet. It was built from scratch by HYBE Studio specifically for this one performance, this one night, This one historic first ever World Cup final halftime show. White base, red trim running along the collar and sleeves, the number 7 placed front and center, and the BTS logo stitched in alongside it. It was worn on a stage shared with Madonna, Shakira, Coldplay, and Justin Bieber, broadcast to an audience that dwarfs almost every other single sporting event on the planet. And when Jimin stepped out in that jersey to perform Dynamite in front of that stadium, he wasn't just representing himself. He was representing K-pop's entrance into a room it had genuinely never been allowed into before, the biggest football stage that exists. So when that same jersey ended up outbidding Lionel Messi, it wasn't just a fun coincidence for fans to celebrate. It became a symbol. It became proof that the same wave of devotion that fills stadiums for BTS concerts, that breaks streaming records, that turns hashtags into worldwide trends within minutes, could walk straight into the middle of football's most prestigious circles and completely rewrite the expectations of what a charity auction item is even supposed to be worth. And the reactions online have been exactly what you'd expect, meaning completely unhinged in the best possible way. Football fans who had never heard the word army in their lives were suddenly Googling who Jimin even is. Sports commentators who spent their whole careers talking about transfer fees and match tactics were now writing headlines asking how a shirt worn by a K-pop idol just outbid the World Cup's biggest star. Fans on social media were calling it, and I'm going to paraphrase here, basically the moment Jimin proved he's the guy without even trying, simply by existing on that stage and letting the auction speak for itself. And on the other side, plenty of football purists were, understandably, a little shocked, some even a bit annoyed, because this is a world that has always treated athlete memorabilia as the untouchable gold standard of sports collecting. Watching a pop performer's stage costume blow past a legendary jersey in real time is the kind of moment that forces an entire industry to sit back and reconsider what actually drives value in 2026. Spoiler alert, it's not always the trophy case. Sometimes it's the size and loyalty of a fan base that shows up the second the bidding window opens and refuses to let go until the number reflects exactly how much they care. What makes this whole story even more remarkable is the timing of it, because remember, this bidding war has been playing out over the exact same week that the auction closes, meaning every single day brought a new twist, a new lead change, a new headline. One day, Messi's jersey would edge back ahead. The next day, Jimin's shirt or V's scarf would surge past it again. It became this ongoing, real-time drama that fans were refreshing constantly, screenshotting every price jump, turning a charity fundraiser into a genuine spectator event of its own, completely separate from the football tournament that inspired it in the first place. And through all of that back and forth, the actual biggest number in the whole auction wasn't even a jersey at all. It was the official match ball from the World Cup final itself, donated by FIFA president Gianni Infantino, which soared all the way up to $42,000 against an estimate of $30,000 to $40,000. But even with that ball sitting at the very top of the entire sale, the story everyone was talking about, the story that made international headlines from Korea to Spain to the United States, was the one about a K-pop idol's stage jersey out-earning a football legend's signature. That tells you everything about where the cultural gravity actually sits right now. So where does this leave us as the auction closes out on July 29th? Well, by every account, Jimin's jersey and V's scarf are almost certainly going to finish among the very top individual bids of the entire one-goal auction, likely finishing ahead of Messi's signed jersey when the final gavel falls. And regardless of the exact final numbers, the story has already been written in the eyes of millions of fans and, frankly, in the eyes of the sports and entertainment world as a whole. This was supposed to be a football story. This was supposed to be Messi's night in the spotlight one more time, one final signature moment tied to his legacy as the greatest to ever play the game. Instead, 7 guys from Korea who spent one night performing on a football stage they'd never stood on before ended up proving, item by item, bid by bid, that their fan base can walk into any room in the world, football included, and completely change the numbers on the board. And the fact that all of this money is going toward children's education funding through Global Citizen just makes the entire moment even more meaningful, because at the end of the day, This wasn't just a fandom flexing its muscle for bragging rights. It was thousands of people around the world putting their money where their love is and turning a K-pop idol's halftime show jersey into one of the most talked about items in the history of celebrity charity auctions. That's the story, and honestly, I don't think this is the last time we're going to see BTS show up somewhere completely unexpected and completely rewrite the rules of what's possible. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you're subscribed because there is so much more coming from this halftime show alone. Moments between BTS and other performers that people are still talking about, and I'll see you in the next video.